There's this idea in America that poor people are poor because they're lazy, that if they just work harder, they'd be fine. But that's just not the truth. And I'm going to prove it to you with actual data. Because here's the reality. Being poor is expensive, and being rich just makes you more rich. Poor people pay more for the same thing. They work harder for less. And the system is designed to keep them down while making it easier for wealthy people to build more wealth. This isn't some conspiracy theory. This is documented reality. And today I'm going to walk you through a typical day in the life of a poor person versus a rich person and show you exactly how the system punishes poverty and rewards the wealthy. Let's start with just waking up. If you work a cushy, white-collar 9-to-5 work-from-home job, you can wake up at 8:55, get your 8 hours of sleep, probably even more, roll out of bed, go straight to your desk, zero commute time. But if you work at a restaurant, retail store, or any service job, you have to physically go there. And these jobs are often located in city centers where rent is extremely expensive. But the thing is, you're poor, so you probably live on the outskirts, which means you spend more time commuting. The average low-income worker in the US spends 42 minutes commuting to work. And yes, that 42 minutes is each way. So that's an hour and 24 minutes per day. In total, that's 7 hours a week, 30 hours a month, and 360 hours a year. That's 15 full days of your life spent sitting in traffic or on a bus, time you could be spending making money, learning a new skill, or just resting. And here's the funny thing. You actually have to pay to commute, which just exacerbates you even being in that worse situation. So if you're poor, you probably need a car because you can't afford a nice, new, reliable vehicle. So you buy an older used car, which seems cheaper up front, but it's actually way more expensive in the long run. Older cars break down more often. The average annual repair cost for a car older than 10 years is $1,200 to $1,500 per year. And the average total annual cost of car ownership is actually over $1,000 a month now. And some additional things that could impact that cost even further is insurance, fuel, and also maintenance depending on your vehicle, because some cars are more expensive than others. Older cars also have worse gas mileage. A 15-year-old car averages about 20 miles per gallon when a new car is easily over 30 miles per gallon. So in effect, you're actually paying over $700 more per year just in gas because you can't afford the more efficient, newer car. You're paying more money in transportation just because you're poor. And then you could just be like, well, take the bus or public transportation. And we can easily talk about more public transportation because it is extremely underfunded in most American cities. The US spends about $82 per person per year on public transportation. Compare that to Germany, France, and the UK, which Germany's at $385, France is at $368 per year, and the UK is at $241. And because public transit in America is seen as for poor people, quote unquote, it doesn't get political support. It's super slow, it's unreliable, and often extremely late. Taking the bus to work can easily double your commute time. That 42-minute commute can actually turn into a 2-hour each way bus ride. So you're spending thousands of dollars per year on an unreliable car compared to getting a newer car. And you're also spending 3 to 4 hours per day commuting on slow, unreliable public transportation. Either way, it's a lose-lose scenario. And this inadvertently affects the poor person compared to the rich person who can afford those luxuries. Okay, so you finally get to work. You get there pretty late because your car broke down or the bus was delayed, which is a very common thing in America. And now you're at the mercy of your boss, who knows you're in a bad spot, who knows you can't easily quit to find another job, and you're a low-wage worker. You essentially have zero bargaining power. And if your boss asks you to stay late, it's harder to refuse. If you ask for time off, it's more likely to be denied. By the Economic Policy Institute, 61% of low-wage workers report having no control over their work schedules. So in effect, you actually get last-minute shift changes. You can't plan out your week ahead. You can't take a second job or go to night classes because your schedule is so unpredictable. And if you try to object, your risk of getting fired is increased. And you can't afford to get fired because you live paycheck to paycheck. In reality, 78% of Americans actually say they live paycheck to paycheck. And over 42% of young Americans, so Gen Z, millennials, report having no spare savings after covering their basic life expenses. Meanwhile, wealthy people with stable salaries, they can negotiate, they can say no. They could demand better conditions, and they have leverage. All right, so now it's lunchtime. What are you going to eat? If you're working a white-collar, full-time job, you can meal prep and cook at home because you probably work remote or have some remote days, or at least more flexibility. You can cook healthy meals in your nice kitchen with your nice dishwasher and your full-size fridge. But if you're working a low-wage job with unpredictable hours and long commutes, when do you have time to meal prep? So you buy food. And here's where it gets really expensive. Healthy food is more expensive than unhealthy food in America. According to Harvard School of Public Health Research, healthier diets cost more than $500 per year. Now, this is just a national average. Obviously, in other locations, it could cost even more depending on imports, what location you're in, where the nearest healthy food things are. And in neighborhoods of lower income, there actually aren't that many healthy food options. It's usually plagued with fast food franchises. So in result, when you're more poor, you eat cheaper, unhealthier, fast food, more processed foods, and which in effect leads to health problems. In the poorest US counties, obesity rates are 145% higher than in wealthy counties. And those health problems are expensive, especially in America where we don't have universal healthcare or even just widely accessible healthcare. So you get cheap food because you can't afford healthy food. The cheap food makes you sick, and then you can't afford the medical bills that are being caused by your unhealthy living habits and situation. All right, so your workday is done. You're heading back home on your 40+ minute commute. Now let's talk about where you live. If you're poor, you can't afford to live in a new, well-maintained building with good insulation. You live in an older building, often in a worse neighborhood with higher crime rate, and you pay more for utilities because the building isn't well insulated, or it isn't as efficient as the newer buildings. According to the Department of Energy, low-income households have an average energy burden of 6% of their income, which is 3 times higher than high income households, and they only spend about 2%. And it's not that these households are actually even using more energy. They're actually even using less energy, but are paying more in costs. And also the lowest income households with the highest energy burden, they actually spend 15% of their income on energy costs. This isn't based on consumption, but it is based on where you live, the efficiency of your building or unit, because you are, chances are, in a lower efficiency rated place or more poor insulated, which heating and cooling are massive contributors to this. And not only that, your unit definitely doesn't have the greatest amenities. Like in-unit laundry, for example, in New York, is a very big luxury. A dishwasher is also even a luxury in the city. So you spend more time doing those chores, time that you could be working or resting or making a healthier meal, but instead you have to pay to use the laundromat. If you do laundry, let's say once a week even, it could be $3 to $5 per load. If you support anybody else, you're probably doing laundry either twice a week or just doing more loads once a week, which can easily save you over $500 per year just to wash your clothes. Meanwhile, wealthy people have washers and dryers in their houses or units, zero extra cost, zero extra time. And where are all these additional costs even coming from? Well, it's coming from your bank account. We can even talk about banking between a low-income individual and a high-income individual, because even your bank account punishes you for being poor. According to recent data, the average overdraft fees at large financial institutions is around $27 to $35 per transaction. 23 million Americans pay overdraft fees in a given year. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, overdrafting is very easy. You could have rent on auto pay, or your auto insurance, or any utility, your phone bill, something is probably on auto pay. If you're paycheck or you have an unexpected cost coming up, boom, that's a $30 to $35 fee right there. Banks collectively make over $12 billion in overdraft fees in 2024. And to a poor person, this could be over $250 a year, because poor people usually pay hundreds per year in fees. Rich people actually earn interest on their savings, and they actually make more money, separating that divide even more. And this isn't something that's like self-inflicted. This is just living and necessities. I'm not saying they're buying something completely out of the ordinary. I'm covering an average low income individual versus a average high income individual. And here's where it can get really, really bad. If you're poor and you need to borrow money, you pay a way higher interest rate. Even the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, average credit card APRs have reached record highs. As of 2024, the average APR for credit cards were about 22.8%. And that's the highest level of this data point since 1994. And if you can't even get a credit card, Some of them go to payday lenders, which is even worse because they can be up to $15 per $100, or it can be up to a 400% APR. For example, if you borrow $500, you're going to have to pay back over $2,000 over time. And that's a completely legal thing in America. Some states even allow 600% APR on these things, which is disgusting. Now, we can even talk about how rich people get richer. If you have money, you invest it. Stocks, real estate, index funds. The average annual return is 7 to 10%. But if you're poor, you don't have money to invest. You're spending everything you earn just to survive. According to the Federal Reserve data, stock ownership is extremely concentrated among the wealth. The top 10% of Americans own 93% of all stock market wealth. Meanwhile, 58% of Americans own stocks in some form, but only the 10% have truly valuable holdings. And if you do manage to save and invest, you're investing small amounts. Your returns are also going to be small amounts. Meanwhile, wealthy people invest large amounts and watch their wealth compound. Here's a very simple example. Person A, who is poor, invests $100 per month for 30 years at 8%. That's only $140,000. Meanwhile, person B invests $1,000 a month. For 30 years at 8%, that's $1.4 million due to compound interest. Person B ends up with 10 times more wealth, not because they're smarter, not because they worked harder, but because they had more money to start with. Now let's talk about the final trap, the bear trap that really catches you and actually is the #1 cause of bankruptcy. If you're poor, you probably don't have good health insurance. Actually, 27 million people in America are completely uninsured. And if you have insurance, you probably have a high deductible, especially if you're lower income. According to 2019 study published in the American Journal of Public Health, medical problems contribute to 66.5% of all bankruptcies. That's about 530,000 families per year filing for bankruptcies due to medical illness. My family personally was actually affected by this back in 2008 or so when I was first diagnosed with Crohn's disease. That was because my family could not afford the massive medical bills we were receiving. There was even a portion of time where I actually didn't even have health insurance, but I still needed the medication to just stay alive. So what were we going to do? Were we just going to let me die, which obviously is not even a feasible thing to do? Or are we going to go into debt and file for bankruptcy just so I can get my medicine? And filing for bankruptcy is no cheap and easy option either. It can take years to even just accomplish this. And that stays on your credit report for over 7 years. And these are numbers after the Affordable Care Act, which the Affordable Care Act didn't actually even fix the problem. And now we're actually even pulling back the Affordable Care Act to make it so now people are even more uninsured. So this problem is probably just going to exacerbate, to be honest. All meanwhile, wealthy people have premium insurance with low deductibles, or they just pay cash for medical care because they're either healthier and they don't have to worry about being in constant medical needs, or they are just so wealthy where they actually don't even need to have health insurance and they can actually afford to have cash to travel to low-cost countries to get procedures done. We see celebrities do this all the time. I think the most prime example is like Turkey with hair transplants now. So they stay healthier, which in effect saves them money long term. All of these struggles are invisible to most people. When rich people work hard and succeed, it's celebrated. Look at the self-made billionaire. They worked 80-hour weeks. But when poor people work hard and still struggle, they're called lazy. Why don't you just get a better job? Why don't you just save more money? They are working hard, probably harder than most rich people even. They're commuting 3 hours a day. They're working unpredictable schedules. They're paying extra for everything: transportation, food, housing, banking, debt even. They're getting up at 5 a.m. to catch the bus, working a full shift, coming home at 8 p.m. doing laundry by hand, meanwhile prepping with no time or energy, and then doing it all again the next day. That's hard work. That's exhausting. It's the daily hassle and struggle, but it's completely invisible to most because it doesn't result in wealth. So society assumes it doesn't exist. This isn't a series of unfortunate coincidences. This is all by design. The system is designed to extract money from the poor people and transfer it to the wealth people. That is capitalism. Banks collected over $12 billion in overdraft fees in 2024 from people who can't afford them. Payday lenders charge over 400% in interest to people who have no other options. Corporations lobby after tax loopholes that save them billions while cutting social programs to help the poorest of people. And every time someone proposes raising the minimum wage or expanding healthcare or funding public transport, which is one of the massive things that I am so advocating for, because oh my God, it's underfunded in America. I hate that we designed the car economy. I hate that we praise the car economy. But overall, overall, we can afford $757 billion on defense. We can afford trillions in tax cuts for the wealthy. Yes, trillions in tax cuts for the wealthy. It's all about priorities. And the priority right now is protecting the wealthy, not reducing poverty or making a wide-scale change in everybody's daily life. Why aren't we making life easier and happier for our citizens? It's because they genuinely don't care. Now, this is not one of your average doomer videos. I'm actually going to give you practical solutions to reduce this burden, or what I like to call it, the poverty tax. So the first thing I would want to advocate for is switching to a no-fee or a low-fee bank that doesn't charge overdraft fees at all. Capital One is one, Ally Bank, I know Chime has it, and there's many credit unions that have eliminated overdraft fees entirely. You can set up low balance alerts on your phones. Most banks let you get text notification when your balance drops below a significant amount. This can help you avoid overdraft fees before they even happen. If you have an account with overdraft fees, call your bank and ask them to waive the most recent fee. Seriously, if it's your first time or if you have a decent relationship with your bank or like you're a long-standing customer, they'll often reverse it if you just ask. Or you can even open a separate checking account just for bills. Transfer the exact amount you need for rent, utilities, etc., and keep the rest in a different location. This prevents auto payments from overdrafting your main account. If you are buying a used car, make sure you are getting a highly reliable vehicle. Make sure it's not completely out of budget. And honestly, do not lease a car. Leasing a car is one of the worst financial things you could probably do for yourself. What I like to do is looking for pre-owned or certified pre-owned vehicles from dealerships. They cost a bit more than the regular used cars, but they come with warranties that cover most major repairs for the first few years. You can even join a credit union before and get a pre-approval before you go to the dealership, which often have lower interest rates on auto loans. There's a ton of Reddit threads out there that actually save you probably thousands of dollars over your lifetime of the loan and tens of thousands over your life in just interest, because people literally have thought everything through for you. And these requirements are not crazy. It's probably like $10 to open an account at a credit union. Okay, just write that $10 as a loss, and then you get a lower interest rate for the life of the loan. Make sure you're also getting quality gas for the car that you are using. A lot of gas stations, which actually in my area, this happened a lot. And this is actually, there's articles about it all over the place. They were actually filling up their gas or kind of cutting their gas with cheaper, lower cost liquids or materials. So your car would be filled up more, quote unquote, but it would actually damage your engine, and they got sued for it and a lot of them closed. So I like to go to kind of verifiable brands like your Exxons or your Shells or your Mobile, I don't even know what it's called, gas stations. Those secondhand gas stations that have like no name to it and it's just like some local thing owned by some random dude, even though they might be a nice person, it might be a cheaper spot, chances are it's probably not the cleanest source of gas, or it's cut with something to make it that much cheaper. If public transit is an option, do the math. If it takes you longer to get there, calculate how much you're spending on car payments, insurance, gas, parking, and maintenance, because sometimes the bus is actually cheaper when you account for all those costs, including your time. For example, I used to own a car when I lived in New Jersey. I still own that car, but I gave it to another family member. But now I just rely off public transportation because I moved to the city. So I take the MTA, I take the Metro North, or I take NJ Transit if I do need to go back to Jersey for something. Public transportation is a great option and honestly is very cheap, but I know not a lot of cities in America actually fund this. Like we said earlier, it's very underfunded here. There's actually probably no other walkable city other than New York in the United States where you actually don't have to own a car. But if that option is available for you, look into it and see how that will work. For food, you can try meal prep on your days off, cook larger batches of rice, beans, chicken, or whatever you can afford in bulk. Even just 2 to 3 hours on a Sunday can give you meals for the entire week. You can make simple taco bowls that are literally chicken, rice, beans, or you can even use refried beans to give it more flavor and a little bit of pre-made seasoning. You don't even have to learn how to season. There are pre-made seasonings out there that taste amazing for meal prepping. Look for sales when you can, digital coupons. Buy frozen vegetables instead of fresh. They're just as nutritious, they're cheaper, and don't go bad as fast. If you qualify, try using local food assistance programs. There might be food stamps available for you or even local food banks. Especially around the holidays, there are so many programs that give out free turkeys and they don't even ask for proof of income. If you really can't afford a turkey on the holidays, get one from one of these free programs. If you are a renter, make sure the energy efficient grading of the building is something you keep in mind. Or in order to just make your unit specifically better, if it is charged per unit, some are building wide, some are charged per unit, whatever, install weather stripping or a better installation that you can actually control. Or if you actually even own your unit, get more efficient appliances. Or go to the hardware store and get installation kits for the winter. There's even weather stripping that will actually keep the cooling or heating more inside your place. There's also programs out there for your state that have wait lists for subsidized housing. Even if you don't need it yet, the wait list can be years long. So it's better to be on the list. Like for example, I'm on that list for my home state. Do I qualify for it? No, but at least I'm on the list. So just in case I do experience job loss or income loss, I can actually be on that wait list or be qualified faster than somebody who's joining on that wait list who's qualified now. Something I did was look for roommate situations. Instead of just cheaper rent, look for a roommate. Try splitting it 2 or 3 ways depending on your situation and needs. And if you have credit card debt, call your credit card company and ask for a lower interest rate. Tell them you've been offered lower rates elsewhere. They'll often reduce it just to keep your business. You can even look into balance transfer credit cards with 0% intro APR. You can transfer high interest debt and have around 18 months to pay it off without interest. This buys you time while you're trying to get into a better situation. Just make sure you actually pay it off before the promotion period ends, or you can even use another balance transfer promotion and buy yourself even more time. So you can buy 36 months in total. If you're using payday loans, just stop it. I know it's hard, but try to find payday alternative loans that are actually capped at like 28% instead of 400%, which 28% is still extremely high. I would just consider stop trying to use that altogether. There's also nonprofit credit counseling. There's organizations out there that offer free debt consulting that can actually help you negotiate with creditors. This is something very more niche, and I know it's harder and has a lot more friction to start, but it's just another option out there. Now, if you are in the situation to actually even start building wealth, if your employer offers a 401k match, contribute at least enough to get that full match. It's literally free money, even if it's just 3 to 5% of your paycheck. And also make sure you have a high yield savings account. This is a bare minimum account that I think everybody should own. First of all, a lot of the balance options are starting at $0. For example, Capital One offers a completely free savings account. And also during high interest rate times, they actually give you 4 to 5% in interest. Now it's down to like 3.5 or 3.3 right now, but a traditional bank gives you 0.01%. And if you do have even more money additional on top of that, start micro investing with apps like Acorn or Robinhood or Fidelity or Vanguard. Even $5 to $10 per week adds up over time with compound interest. If you get a tax refund, instead of spending it, put it straight into savings or investments, or adjust your withholdings so you get more money in each paycheck instead of a lump sum at tax time. For health insurance, if you don't have insurance, look into Medicaid. The income limits are higher than you think, especially if you have kids. You can use community healthcare centers for primary care. They charge on a sliding scale based on income. And if you have medical debt, call the hospital billing department and ask about financial assistance programs. You can also even negotiate these bills down. If you ask for an itemized bill, they will often just lower the amount without you even directly asking for a lower amount. Also, many hospitals have charity care or financial assistance programs. They'll reduce or eliminate bills for low-income patients altogether if you just ask. Also, for prescription discounts, there are many out there. I know GoodRx is like the main one. I know Amazon also has a pharmacy thing now. And there's also the Mark Cuban pharmacy. If you just search that up, you'll find it. That gives you cheaper prices than your insurance copay usually. Obviously, that depends on your insurance and the quality of your insurance. So look into that and compare the cost. And I just want to get this out there too. The most important thing is that none of this is actually your fault. The system is designed this way. They don't teach it in schools. Parents don't teach it to their children. And I think obviously a lot of people are waking up to this, that I'm hoping that's why you found this video, or that's why you're watching this video, is to prevent being in such a bad situation, or to just be more aware of what's going on out there. But you cannot wait on the system to change, because it's probably not going to. You have to survive in it while we work to fix it. And these strategies won't make you rich. They're not going to make you the ultra wealthy, but they can reduce the poverty tax you're paying. It can give you a little bit more breathing room or a little bit more time until you figure something else out. And sometimes the breathing room is a difference between surviving and drowning. So yes, being poor is expensive, and being rich just makes you richer. This isn't about laziness. This is about the system that punishes poverty and rewards the wealthy. Poor people work harder, pay more, and get less. Rich people work less, pay less, and get more. And until we acknowledge that, until we stop pretending that poverty is a moral failing, nothing is going to change. I'm not saying rich people didn't work hard. Some did, some absolutely do not. But the hard work they do is recognized and rewarded. The hard work poor people do is invisible and actually even punished. And that's the difference. And if you found this video valuable, let me know in the comments what you found valuable specifically. And if you have your own experiences with the poverty tax, share them, because these conversations matter and it can help somebody in a similar position or who was in a similar position than you just years ago. I'd like to frame it as talking to my younger self. That's how I want you to frame your comment. Talk to your younger self. Give tips and insights that will help save somebody else from a bad situation. And that's exactly the community I'm trying to build on my Discord. We have over 2,300 members in the Discord working to better their everyday lives. And that's what I'm trying to build right now, is a community of builders instead of complainers, because the internet and YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, the algorithms are filled with these doomers. Let's build a system and a community of people trying to build better lives instead of just complaining about it. And if you want to support the channel even further, if you're in the situation to support the channel further, there's a buy me a coffee link in the description down below, which I do accept memberships or donations. And obviously those are completely optional, but if you have the means to do so, you can go and check that out there. But overall, if you just enjoyed this video and you made it this far, click the like button and subscribe. That is all you need to do. And that is all I'm going to ask from you today. And that will be it. We will talk again soon. And I hope you genuinely enjoyed this video. Peace.